All right, now that you've learned your words, we're moving on to our sentence templates. A sentence template is something that we want to use to imitate so that our own sentences can develop and become more mature and more beautiful. Our first template number 1, is his car, a perfectly maintained 1960 Thunderbird that was his pride and joy, stood in the driveway, by Stephen King from the book Needful Things. And let's take a look at this sentence. The purpose of this kind of sentence is to smoothly work in vivid introductory detail about a person, place, or thing. And what does that mean? How is this sentence working in introductory detail? Let's compare. So we've got this first one, his car, a perfectly maintained 1960 Thunderbird that was his pride and joy, stood in the driveway, versus just his car stood in the driveway. If you notice, what is the difference between those? We've got these two commas here, and these are called parenthetical commas, where you can insert an entire phrase in between these commas with where and then go back to exactly where you were in the sentence. The main structure of the sentence is his car stood in the driveway, but by using those commas, we can add in lots of detail about what that car is like. Another way to do it, of course, is just to put the detail in other sentences. His car stood in the driveway. It was a perfectly maintained 1960 Thunderbird. It was his pride and joy. And this is usually the way that students write their sentences, because you think of, the main subject and the main verb, and then you have your detail and it gets tacked on at the end. But when your writing becomes more mature, you learn how to work in that detail into the middle of the sentence so that it can read more smoothly, and you don't interrupt yourself with those periods over and over. So how do we imitate this sentence? So you start out with your main subject and your main verb. His car stood. And so if you were to imitate, you would think of a different subject. Maybe you would say the cat, or maybe you would say the cloud, or my aunt Edna. It can be any subject you want, and you can think about what they're doing. And then between the subject and verb, you insert these two commas. Parenthetical commas insert between subject and verb. And then you add in this phrase in the middle, and this is called an appositive phrase. And you don't have to remember what that is, but it answers the question, what is it? And so his car, comma, well, what is his car? And so you start off with the word a perfectly maintained 1960 Thunderbird. Oh, what is his car? It is a perfectly maintained 1960 Thunderbird. And then Stephen King even adds on this an extra descriptive phrase to bring in more detail. That was his pride and joy. And he can put all of that in describing the car before he closes the parenthetical comma and then continues on with the rest of the sentence. So let's look at some example imitations. The girl, a short, wide-eared little thing with a ragged dress and big green eyes, laughed up at the clouds. And so you get this same structure. The girl laughed up at the clouds would be the main subject and verb of the sentence, but then this appositive phrase can be inserted between these two commas to add this descriptive detail. And number 2, that forest, a dark and unholy place that none of the villagers dared to enter, spawned a monster. And so subject, verb, split the subject and verb with the commas and add in your positive phrase to describe what the forest is. So that's you're going to be your homework this week. You're going to do sentence imitations. Write 5 sentence imitations of our template number 1. In each one, use one of the words below. The word can fall in any part of the sentence. So we have our 5 vocab words that we learned earlier, and you're going to use them to imitate that same template sentence and imitate it 5 times. So in this one, you have 2 examples imitations. You're going to write 5 of them, and they're going to each follow the same structure. So go to it, give it a try, and see what you can do to work in that descriptive detail.